On behalf of the Work Better Now team, I'd like to welcome everybody to this episode of Working Better Now, a series on workbetternow.com, featuring a Q&A with a successful business leader. Today, we are thrilled to be joined by Ed Bohlke, founder and CEO of Deserve Level Coaching. And Ed, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Rob. Happy to be here.
Ed, let's just jump right in. Tell us a little bit about your business.
Okay, so Ed Bohlke, Deserve Level Coaching is an executive coaching practice. My name is on the masthead, but there are other coaches that work for us as well. And I consider it one of my main objectives to train as many effective professional coaches as possible to be able to make an impact with as many different business owners as we can. But what we do is we work with business owners, senior executives. Our clients range from startups to Fortune 100 companies, and our services are essentially to create optimal performance in the people that we work with so that they have breakthroughs in their effectiveness. And a lot of the approach that we use is based around unconscious limitations that we help teach people how to identify and remove those unconscious barriers to amazing productivity. So we have a system that has been developed over a period of about 15 years that has proven to be very effective at doing exactly that, to remove those unconscious barriers and adjust people's unconscious thoughts about who they are, what they're worthy of having and accomplishing in life, and then the same for their companies. So a company is obviously made up of a lot of people, and they each have these ideas about what they are worthy of having and accomplishing, and they affect the whole. So what we work with companies on is identifying those areas where they really want to take their performance to the next level and fine-tune the unconscious approach to their personally, how they look at themselves and to the business to do that, unlocking great potential.
Very cool. And as a client, I could tell you that it's really cool stuff, and it helped me tremendously. Ed, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are now.
Sure. Well, if you go far enough back, I was a software engineer. My earlier career, I was a computer programmer, in a sense, working on Wall Street. I wrote software for bond trading, derivative trading, a lot of financial services work, and then eventually became a technology executive and started running various high-tech companies. And throughout that entire evolution of my career, the thing that I was most interested in was human performance. So sure, there was machine performance. How do you get the computer to do the things that help you succeed in whatever your business objectives are? But it really comes down to how you behave as a human being. So the idea of human potential, performance improvement, understanding how our brains work and how to get the most out of them, that was always the most interesting to me. And at one point I said, you know what, technology is great, and I will always have a love of technology, but this idea of human performance is much more interesting. So I sold the last company that I had helped to build and shifted into executive coaching work as my full-time focus about 15 years ago. So that then has blossomed, and we essentially have a way of looking at human beings from a technological standpoint. Like what you have between your ears is really a supercomputer. And how do we get that to operate at peak efficiency and effectiveness?
Pretty cool how you connect the two. Ed, tell us a little bit about what your team looks like, as particularly as a, having a coaching business. I'm very curious about that.
Sure. So right at the moment, I have 3 other coaches that work with me. I have an executive assistant that I hired through Work Better Now, which was a great decision. And I have external resources that are really part of the team, even though they're not, W-2 employees. But I have somebody that runs my social media and helps me with course development, because I work not only one-on-one as an executive coach, but I also create programs, one of which you recently attended. So I have somebody that is a specialist in the creation of high impact coaching programs that I work with. And then I also have another team that does lead generation for the executive coaching business. And then these things are integrated together. So for example, the lead generator creates interactions with people through social media, be that Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc., establishes some level of interest. And then my executive assistant, Vitya, picks up the dialogue and establishes really how interested that person is, and if there is enough of a fit to warrant a one-on-one hour-long conversation to dig deeply into that person and that company's objectives, and if our services are a good fit for them. So it's terrific because that whole process is very seamless. I see that there is an event scheduled in my calendar, which is someone who is very interested in what we do, and then I can have an effective conversation to really determine if it's a good fit or not. But everything leading up to the moment that I have to show up on the call, that's all happened behind the scenes, and it doesn't take my time, which, as you can imagine, is a pretty precious resource. Time is the most important resource for most of us.
Very true, very true. Well done, Ed. That's really cool how you set that up. Ed, we talk about getting unstuck and unleashed. It's the first words that you see when you go to workbetternow.com. You work with a lot of different people, but you work with a lot of entrepreneurs. In fact, I was referred to you by a very successful entrepreneur. And, what do you see as the most common ways that entrepreneurs get stuck? What tends to happen if you were to summarize them and put them in one bucket?
Yeah, it's not easy to get everybody into that one bucket, because there are a lot of different things that impact people's performance and how they get stuck. I refer a lot to this idea of deserve level. It's in the name of the company. And the idea is that what we have built into our unconscious minds is frequently a limited view of what we're capable of. So, these things happen naturally over the course of our lives. We experience some event and try to make sense of it. And in a lot of cases, the sense we make of it is to say, oh, I'm just no good at that thing. Maybe I'm really good at writing business plans, but I'm not so good at reading a balance sheet, or I'm not as good at the pitch. Whatever it is, if you've come to a conclusion, made a decision. So the idea of a decision comes from the word decide, obviously, which the Latin root of is cedere, which is to kill or to cut. Think homicide, suicide, pesticide, genocide. So a decision that you've made that limits you kills certain behaviors. If you have decided that you're no good at pitching, then you're going to do a crappy job whenever you're faced with a situation where you have to pitch, because whatever your unconscious mind believes it will find a way to prove. So the only way that I can see to get the blockages into one bucket is to look at it from the perspective broadly of limiting decisions. When you have unconsciously made these decisions, come to the conclusions that something is beyond you or it's not your area of expertise, that will change your behavior and have you be less productive. So that would be the short version. And then everybody's limiting decisions are unique. And most people don't see them because they really are unconscious biases. And so you just relate to your own limiting decisions as the truth. And we all know that we're not going to violate the truth, right? I live on the 12th floor. And if I walk off the balcony, I know that gravity will take over and I will plunge to my death. So once I know something, that changes my behavior. Now, in the case of limiting decisions, most of those things are not the truth, but we relate to them like they are, and they stop us from taking effective action.
Gotcha.
Does that answer your question?
Perfect. Perfect. And in terms of getting unleashed, which essentially I think is what you do, Ed, in a nutshell, how do business owners, when they go through your program, how do they get unleashed?
Well, we essentially do a mapping of their unconscious minds. We walk through with them what they know about themselves, and we help them to become detectives, essentially, that can get below the level of consciousness and understand the decisions that they've made that they completely forgot about. And so to unleash people means teaching them to be able to expose their unconscious limiting decisions and give them a set of tools for evicting them from their unconscious mind and replace them with a set of new decisions that they design consciously in that have to be in alignment with a set of well-defined goals, really aggressive, big picture goals, things that they want to accomplish that they haven't been able to accomplish before. What would they need to know about themselves that if they knew these things, it would be absolutely inevitable that they would accomplish these goals? And those become the decisions that we help them program into their unconscious mind, essentially, going back to the engineering background, essentially to upgrade the operating system of their unconscious to be more effective.
Very cool.
That provides incredible power for people. That really gets people unleashed.
Yeah, and as somebody who's gone through the program, I can tell you it still is very powerful. Let's switch gears a little, Ed.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about the experience that you had with Beecha in terms of how has that impacted how has working with her impacted your business?
Well, I almost don't want to tell you the truth, Rob, because it's going to sound too good to be true. And I'd hate to have people come away from this and think that, we had some kind of a deal where I was going to, pump things up here, but it's been just a total game changer. So I realized by hiring Beecha, something that you had told me when we discussed it in the beginning was you're going to find out that this person, this assistant, the way that they've been selected and vetted, this is somebody that's going to do way more than you can imagine. And that just, as much as I accepted that on its face, it was way beyond even that. So with Beecha, I tend to give things a little bit at a time in the beginning to see how somebody can do. Anybody that's ever worked for me, I let them prove themselves. I cannot give her anything so far that's proven to be too challenging. So I think that I'm going to be, giving her some, very difficult, complicated assignment to write a research paper on some advanced technology. And she comes back to me with it the next day. And then it turns out that she took over some aspect of my social media and reviewed courses that I had shown her where to find recordings. And she has extracted quotes from me, created this beautiful social media system, made it automatic so that it even runs over the weekend when she's not working. And I had nothing to do with it. I could have as much as I want to do with it. I review the material that she puts together, but it's beautiful. So what I find is that she is out there thinking of things to do before I've even come up with them, which means that I don't need to spend an inordinate amount of time coming up with work for her or managing her. It is truly the most incredible time-saving thing I have ever done with my business.
That's great to hear that, Ed. Thanks for sharing. We like to say that one of the things we do is what everybody thought was impossible, which is actually give you more time in your day. What has this enabled? What is having her enabled you to do with respect to your business or your personal life?
Sure. Well, first in terms of business, it's allowed me to drastically cut the amount of time that I spend on business development, which is great because, the business is expanding. And so that gives me more time to train other coaches, which is in the long term, what's going to allow us to scale the way that we want to hit our objectives. And so to have absolutely the barest minimum amount of time spent on business development while seeing an increase in the business at the same time gives me time for the other things that are, really more mission critical. The training of coaches, the development of the group training programs, such as the one you recently attended, writing my book. So what we're seeing is less time on business development, a dramatic increase in revenue, more time for the things that are really important. So, and that's the business side. On the personal side, I have more time with my daughter, and which is pretty great because honestly, you know what it's like to be an entrepreneur. I was working basically 70 to 80 hours a week, and I'm a single dad. And so the person who that affects the most is my 12-year-old daughter. And with the addition of Beecha to the team and all these time-saving things that we've been discussing, I've now been able to take a little bit of time off during the week, and my weekends have essentially been free for the first time since I started this business to do great, fun things with her. So made a huge difference. More time for sleep too, which that's pretty important to your health.
Right. Thanks for sharing that, Ed. So you started to allude to this already, but what else do you like to do when you're not working?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, I love fitness related activities. So I work out pretty hard. I have a trainer that I work with on powerlifting 3 days a week. I lift on my own 2 other days a week. I do cardio 4 times a week. And as one of the things that the extra time allowed, I'm now in a martial arts class with my daughter. So it's kind of a father-daughter learn to kick butt kind of thing. I've been an avid student of the martial arts since I was a kid. So now I have a little bit more time for doing that. I read a ton. I live on the beach, so I love to be in or on or near the water. And one of my hobbies is I grow orchids. So I've got something like 50 orchids in the condo here everywhere. So, and I grow some of my own food. I know that's kind of crazy in a condo, but I have a hydroponic system.
Hydroponics, yeah, very cool. Yeah. Very cool. Ed, where can people find out more about you and your company?
Probably the easiest way to do it would be to go to the website deservelevel.com. just those two words spelled regular English, deservelevel.com. And that website will allow them to, see a little explanation of the type of coaching that I do, both for individuals and for organizations. They can read some case studies that are on there. And of course, they can contact me through the website as well.
Perfect. Ed, thanks so much for spending a few minutes of your day and sharing your thoughts and your insights with the Work Better Now community. Really appreciate it. Absolutely,
my honor, Rob. And thank you again for introducing me to Bitya. It made a huge difference in our business. And it's really great to see you thriving the way that you are.
Thanks, Ed. Really appreciate it.